Alright, in this lesson we're going to be talking about absolute value of a number. And I want you to really focus in on the meaning of absolute value. Absolute value means the distance from zero. A lot of times students say, well, it's the positive. Well, when you start thinking that way, you forget about what the real definition is. And the definition is the distance from zero. So that's what we're going to look at. This literally says how far from zero is negative 4. So if you look at that on the number line, negative 4 being there, 0 being here, we look at the distance between those, and that is 4 units. In the next problem, it says the absolute value of 4. So if we look at the distance away from 0 to 4, then that again would be 4 units. This is where students get the idea that it's always positive. But you have to be very careful, because then you get something a little bit more complex looking, and you just say, well, that's just positive. That's not true. You have to be very careful about your order of operations. This literally says the opposite of the absolute value, or how far from 0 is negative 4. Well, negative 4 being here, we've already plotted that once. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4, but we still have to take the opposite of that. So that would be negative 4. And then in our last example over here, we're doing the negative, or the opposite of how far from 0 is 4. Well, remember, 4 was right here, and that is 4 units from 0. So the opposite of 4 is negative 4. Okay, a few more examples here along those lines. This says the opposite of the absolute value of negative 43. So we're doing the opposite of, well, negative 43 is 43 units from 0. So that would be negative 43. In our next example here, though, you see we don't have absolute value bars. We have parentheses instead. So this means something completely different. This says the opposite of negative 43, literally. And the opposite of, or the negative of, negative 43 would be 43. All right, so now we're going to put those things together. We're going to look at these two items, the absolute value of negative 26 and negative 26, and we're going to compare those. Insert less than, greater than, or equal to, and to make a true statement. Well, before we can make a true statement, we absolutely have to figure out what this absolute value is. So negative 26 is 26 units from 0. And on the right side here, we have the opposite of negative 26, which is 26. These things are equal, so we would insert an equal symbol. Alright, now we're going to truly put everything together. Variables, absolute values, positive and negative integers. So here we have to evaluate the absolute value of negative x. And it says if the x happens to be negative 21. So we're saying the absolute value of negative something. And we're replacing that something with negative 21. We'll look within this absolute value bar. This literally says the opposite of negative 21. And the opposite of negative 21 would be positive 21. Now we still have to do our absolute value bars. So 21 is 21 units from 0. Last one here. This says the opposite of the absolute value of negative x. So we're going to put in our opposite of absolute value of negative x, but instead of x, we're going to plug in 28. We have to do the absolute value bar first. That's kind of like a grouping symbol. So negative 28 is 28 units away from 0. And then we have to do the opposite of that, which would be negative 28. Remember, when you see these straight bars, that means absolute value.